All the action packed in 180 minutes. Power Breakfast with Tessa Dooms. Weekdays 6 to 9 a.m.
The time is 6:53 on Power Breakfast this morning with Tessa Dooms. On the line with us, we have Jody Schultz, the Commissioner of the National Lotteries Commission. Jody, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Of course, the Lotteries Commission has been in the news in the last few weeks as you've tried to wade through the decisions that needed to be made about who the operator will be. But there have been questions that have also been asked at a governance level about, is the governance and has the governance transition been helpful to the Commission and it functioning optimally? So a lot here that has been on the line. But of course, the latest now being that Ituba has got this extension of their operating license. What is next for making sure that this transition is a smooth one?
Morning, Tess, and good morning to your listeners. I just want to clarify, Ituba doesn't have an extension. They've been granted an emergency temporary license of 12 months. And so that allows us time to transition to the next operator, which is Sizakaya Holdings.
All right. So, and what is the process for that handover, as it were?
Look, it's a very technical one. It's outlined in the license agreement. And so there are some things that Ituba would have to do to wind up the lottery. There are things Sizakaya needs to get their national footprint embedded. So these processes take quite a while to embed. And Sizakaya has said to us that they need 9 months transition.
Okay.
Globally, the transition is around 10 months. The UK in the last round was around 10 months.
Now, I said extension because I think the temporary license initially was about 6 months. So there is now an extension into 12 months. And I can see it's to cover for what that standard is, that 9 to 10 month period that is required for that transition to go smoothly. Do you feel like this puts the lottery in a good footing going forward? I guess not only on the operator license side, but there have also been, configurations of the lottery in terms of its grant making. Do you feel like that part of the Lottery Commission is also on track now?
Absolutely. Our reserves are quite robust. And so we've always said we have sufficient reserves to even issue another call later this year. Our call closed on Friday, and we do intend issuing another call. So the grant-making distribution has never been in any question. I liked your earlier comments. We were talking. You guys were talking about justice versus drama, and unfortunately, I think there's been a lot of unnecessary drama in the space without looking at the actual facts. So we've been on record as saying we're sitting on reserves of around 4 billion. That has been carefully built up over time to ensure that we budget for situations like this, because it would be irresponsible if we didn't. And so our new system as well is also introducing governance into a sector, which we've done some research. The University of Pretoria has done some research for us, saying that the sector itself is around 25% compliant. I was reading last night, SARS is also looking at a process to get NPOs in particular tax compliant.
Yeah.
So we need to introduce governance into the sector to enable us to transfer money and to get monies to communities, vulnerable people who desperately need it in the quickest way possible.
So when reports come out that say that there are thousands of delinquent beneficiaries of grants from the lottery system, what do you think those reports are referring to? Because of course, for somebody listening from the outside, they may say, okay, that must mean there's some sort of corrupt activity happening there. Are you suggesting here that this is just a matter of whether or not the beneficiaries are able to be compliant?
Absolutely. So we're finding beneficiaries are largely into two pools. One where they don't understand the governance and the compliance requirements, and the other one where there's been deliberate fraud and corruption.
Right.
And so you can clearly see people have transferred funds into various other entities, or there've been large cash withdrawals, and that entity just doesn't explain that. And those are requirements that we put in to ensure that money goes to where it's intended. So those are some of the areas that we're focusing on right now.
And I think, Jody, part of the concern here is that question, that second category, the category of corruption, and how you are able to distinguish between the two, because some people have worried that the lottery is an easy cash cow if you wanted to move money, if you wanted to go into the direction of siphoning money out, because then all you need is an NPO beneficiary that's willing to do a kickback deal. Is that something that the National Lottery is able to assess, track, and stop? Is there a machinery that you have in place now for that, over and above basic compliance? Because that could be compliant and corrupt.
Absolutely. Yes. So our old system, and I think your previous caller referred, that the new system has weak internal controls, and that's factually incorrect. We've looked at all of the issues the SIU has indicated are problematic. We've ourselves had numerous internal audit reports looking at where the corruption actually occurs. And so we beefed this up into the system. Previously, we didn't take ID numbers, we didn't take tax clearance certificates. We now have independent verification that happens on the system. It's an automatic verification with CIPC if you're a non-profit company, with DSD if you're an NPO. SARS is also on board. We also have Van Merchant Bank on board. All of these are intended to ensure that whoever applies for funding is in fact compliant, and that enables us to track and assess the impact of funds.
Jody, I think one of the things that you would have a complication with that I think is a big problem within the NPO funding space is that, in fact, the organizations that need this support the most are community-based organizations who don't necessarily have not only the know-how when it comes to compliance, but the means to remain compliant. So, I mean, I've seen some government, especially in the social development space, where they'll put out calls for applications and ask for audited statements from an NPO that's a community-based organization that barely has 200 Rand in their account. And so how do we start to tackle this in a way that gives you as a fund maker, grant maker, the opportunity to help these small organizations, even though they have the kind of constraints they do?
Absolutely, and that's some of the work that we've been doing. So we've had about, I think since 2023, 183 awareness sessions going into communities, talking to about 46,000 people across the country, talking to them about compliance. What we're also doing is we are also having conversations with some of the professional associations about how we can assist in a way that is developmental.
Sure.
And not punitive. And that's
the work that needs to be done.
Absolutely, and that's where we are.
Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing more work being done to get this institution at its absolute peak, running absolutely well, because we know that a lot of resources are sitting, in your fiduciary hands, there in the duties that you have, and we hope that the South African public will be able to benefit from it in a way that is trusted, relied, but also meets the needs that the different organizations that you support have. So thank you so much, Jody Schultz, Commissioner of the National Lotteries Commission.